So tonight we reached the 7th sign of the Zodiac. So this is an interesting kind of turning point because so far we've been through the first 6 signs, which is a kind of like they're almost signs that represent the, if you like, the the sort of what could be considered the development of the self with respects to the self. When you get to the 7th sign, we're now reaching a point where we oppose the first sign. So there's an opposition in the chart, which is reached by the 7th sign of Libra opposing the first sign of Aries. So I want to start talking about that because you see, in order to understand astrology, everything is polarities and opposites, you know, as is life, you know, light and dark, hot and cold, asleep and awake, you know, all these different things are, we have constantly in our lives this idea of two things. And Libra is the sign that totally embodies that or represents that. So Libra is the occurs or starts when the sun crosses into 0 degrees Libra, which is around about September the 21st every year. September 20th, September 21st. This is known as the autumn equinox, or in America, the fall equinox. So it's when the sun is at the, again, at the equal point that it is, like it is when it crosses into 0 Aries. So an equinox is an equal day and equal night. So Aries is equal day, equal night. 6 months later, Libra is equal day and equal night. But the beginning of Libra is also the beginning of autumn, the season of autumn, which leads into winter. So it's a massive turning point where we have in our journey, we've gone through the spring, we've gone through the summer, and now we're at this stage where the whole growing cycle has been complete. But in order to have another growing cycle in 6 months' time, things have to start to kind of complete, if you like. So with Libra, you're looking at this idea of being, finding that balance in life. That's what Libra is all about. So I want to start by looking at the idea of a little bit about the Libra myth. The ruling planet of Libra is Venus, which is the goddess of love. And in Greek myth, that's Aphrodite. And Aphrodite was born of the waves of the sea, or out of the sea foam. That is what we're told in Greek myth. And foam floats on top of the waves. Okay, you go down to the beach and things. You see that kind of the crashing foam that develops. And this is actually what Aphrodite is born out of. But in order to understand that better, then you have to think elementally, which is, of course, as Sherlock Holmes would say, it's all elemental, my dear Watson, because that is actually what observation is in life. Sherlock Holmes was the famous character who was able to suss things out detectively wise as an investigator, because he saw things differently. He didn't just look, he observed. And that's the key to real magic or real understanding life, is to observe it. So it's elemental, my dear students. Sea foam is this idea that air is trapped in water. So, or air is contained within the water that makes its own form. So with Libra, you're looking at the idea of feelings and emotions, which is a very watery thing, expressed as air, which is relating. So there's some distinct qualities there that need to be kind of eased out and worked around and understood. So what you're looking at is this idea of that foam that is it's a variety or interaction or interchange of form, you know, that makes beautiful things. So that's the eternal feminine, of course, which is in nature as well. So there's a lot about really understanding things in terms of how nature finds a balance, because in the whole journey of the year zodiac, if you see it like a pendulum, you know, like the sun is the pendulum, you know, swinging like this. if it goes to Aries, which is one end, it goes to Libra, which is the other end, and that's how the whole cycle is completed. But the pendulum creates or needs to be supported or have a form or a structure, which is the whole zodiac. So Libra has a structure to it in terms of the eternal feminine, if you like, or it has a structure to its form. And that is the beautiful thing. That's the beautiful thing that, or the idea of balance that holds the whole universe into shape. Because it could be said that the journey of our lives, the most important thing is love, right? I mean, it's like that's what we're here to do, technically speaking, and in all forms, or to understand it, or work with it, or experience it through many levels of evolution within a lifetime. So the ruling planet of Libra, being Venus, starts to show us that we have, what we can attempt to aspire to. So when we look at our charts, wherever Libra is in your chart, whichever house cusp it has, or whatever planets it may or may not have in it, it might have an angle, it might have, might have no points at all, but it's going to have an area of your life where you will experience the need for balance and relating, and therefore understand how your Venus works better, okay, in your chart. So that's some ideas there about Libra, okay? So Libra essentially is the sign of harmony, all right? And in life, we have one of those things is we seek to relate somehow, however that's going to work for us, and however sometimes how people stumble through lives, really not trying to work it all out. How do I make a relationship work, etc. Some people just, it's like that, and we all have our own sets of ways of expressing ourselves, but there is that idea that somehow we're going to seek harmony through relationship. Some people find it incredibly easy to do. Some people not so easy. Some people shy away from it. So the whole idea though is that we are sometimes a sense of, because there are men and women in life, we have the two things. That is the balance. That is like a sense of the scales, and sometimes it can be a sense of feeling of incompleteness without the other half, if you like. And again, that's part of that Libra kind of understanding. So it's almost as if there is, the interchanging of affections, or the attraction. It all comes under the sway of Venus. So this idea of creating harmony, maintaining harmony, and enjoying harmony. These are very Libra focuses. And so it's in the harmony of form of like that's why a Libra might make a good architect, or a designer, a graphic designer, or an engineer, or something, because they like to make form of something. So they have a very creative and impulse way of functioning. They have a lot of style, and they have huge amounts of concern not to rub people the wrong way. They want to have everybody enjoying a social life, or a good, gracious way of existing. And so Libra people tend to be very relationship oriented and very sociable. So there's a sense of being the peacemaker. They are very willing to compromise, and that's why Libras are famous for sitting on the fence and finding it very difficult to make a decision about things. They'll go with, they say, oh, might be that, might be that, might be this, might be that, and that's often the case with Libra, because they're trying to do the best thing for everybody concerned, and that's really how they think, and that's it can be quite difficult for them with respect to how they move forwards in life, when they've always got to think of other people. but that is the nature of Libra. And that's why Libras like Aries, because that's the opposite sign, because Aries is driven by Mars. Mars doesn't necessarily care so much about what it's doing. So Mars just goes ahead and does stuff, right? The nature of Mars. But Libra is Venus, and Libra then says, well, no, but I have to think about others. And so so a Mars recognizes by its action and nature that it does need to have something else to balance it out. And Libra realizes that because it thinks about others so much and considers others usually before itself, that it needs a bit of Mars to get it to decide what to do. So, and this is that's the axis of Aries Libra, or Libra Aries. And that's the equinox as well, the idea of equal day and night, the balance of the whole year, if you like. And so so the sense of Libra is they have, it could be said they have gentle manners, they have tact, they have courtesy. And you see this in the Libra character. They are the sort of people who have genuine appreciation of what is admirable in others. And they don't really have very many enemies because they are diplomats. Libras are excellent diplomats. And so they make good like counselors and relators and people who can listen, because they are, as I said, always thinking about others. So the Libra does, they hate injustice. They seek peace at all costs, and they don't like unfairness, and they don't like things that are ill proportioned. So they, if things are really, are distasteful or what could be called ugly or horrible or something like that, they'll ignore it. The Libra will just go straight past it. They like the beautiful things in life. And that makes them, that's not particularly one of their best features, actually, is the fact that they'll overlook things for the really preferable nice things. So, that sometimes can be, that they have a specific kind of area that they like, if you know what I mean. So they don't like morbid feelings, for example, or depressing or hysterical or strained things. They don't dwell on that sort of stuff. They like the idea of having a nice day. Let's have another nice day tomorrow, and let's have more nice days next week, kind of stuff. They're kind of that sort of nature. It's like everything has to be nice. And if you think about the Libras that you might start to get an idea of what I'm trying to say there. Like they're, for them, healthy, normal, and good expression is like listening to music. There's a sense of harmony in the music. It all sounds good together, and that's why you get a lot of Libra musicians and artists and poets and writers. They like singing, or they like to sing, or they like to hear the song, and there's a sense of they don't like harsh notes or discordant notes. That's not Libras. They overlook those sort of things, so they won't listen to it. They'll be like, oh, can't do that type stuff. So they tend to live very much in the present, generally speaking. They're sort of people who might say, let sleeping dogs lie, or let bygones be bygones. These are very Libra type of terms. And they are not particularly introspective. They tend to be, or they're not particularly self-analytical. They do project themselves outwards. It is an air sign. So you think about the idea of air and movement of air and breeziness and the movement of things in terms of relating and connecting. They don't necessarily worry about things like if they're going fast or slow in life. They're just going through life and they're enjoying it. and so that, and they don't tend to worry that much about the future, or they tend to be, oh yeah, well, it's happening. I have a couple of friends who are a Libra couple actually, and they run their own businesses. And when the lockdown happened, they were just like, well, we can't believe. It was really interesting to listen to them talk, because I went around to visit them and towards the end of the lockdown last summer, and they've been telling me about all their stuff, and I just thought it was really interesting how that insight of how they coped and things like that, and it was really interesting. I learned a lot about Libra that day, if you know what I mean, when you really listen to them, because you'll see how they are, and when you do know someone's sun sign, or or maybe they have several planets in that sign, then you really start to sort of get a better understanding of people, and that's when you see the attributes of the signs come out. You'll see that kind of, what should we call it, that frequency, that energy, that particular type of characteristic. It starts to show, So and that's that's the sort of one of the incredible things about astrology, of course, is that it gives you those insights, and it's multi-layered, So the Libra, let's look at relationships, because of course love affairs for Libra, or the idea of love and relating, is key. It's hugely important to them. And it's one of the most important things in their lives is their relationships, or their marriage, or whatever it becomes in life for them. So they tend to choose a mate quite early, and they tend to be generally within their relationships. They can be quite, so the male Libra can be very tender, very affectionate, very easy to live with, that's it. It's how they, because they have that sense of the well-balanced mind. Often is a quite well-balanced mind, and dislike of emotional excitement. So they don't tend to be very rash, or get involved in too much discreditable entanglements. They tend to try and keep themselves very balanced and very sort of, almost like just on the straight and narrow, like a kind of like a path that they follow. And then the female Libra within the marriage tends to really enjoy popularity, likes to build the social circle, has a generally uncritical attitude, and quite a frank admiration for the opposite. And that's the key of this idea of Venus Mars, and so they Libra women like the manly qualities. They really do. I mean, they have a particular, they look out for that, and they don't tend to hurt anyone's feelings. They find it almost impossible to say no about something. So they'll always be opening up their house for socialness and fun and frivolity and parties and whatever, because they like to interact with others. And so Libra's very interactive. And there's a sense of they're very kind. They can't help it. It's a kind of, there's a really genuine natural kindness there that's very admirable quality again. And because they are concerned for others. So these are some of the sort of what you can see in Libra relationships. So they don't necessarily choose to have children. It's not necessarily a majorly important thing for them. They do, of course, they do, but it's not something that might not rank as a priority in a Libra's life. So that's something that you might note as well, that, and they, of course, but they do make very good family people once they get into the family or start the family, then they make very good family people. So have a look. The evolved Libra is someone who would be sharing and cooperating, okay, with or mediating, shall we say, finding the mediation between two things. So they're very good at business, of course, and things like that. But the not so evolved Libra would be very overly compromising and doing everything for others before realizing that they have to find the balance themselves. So some Libras, or evolved Libras, are very pleasing, agreeable, likable, charming, and hospitable. But the other Libras, the ones who may not be quite so involved, might be overly accommodating, very pacifying, very compliant, very acquiescent, and very docile. So I'm talking about here like the strength of the quality of the sign. Different types of Libras that you can get. So it could be said that there are positive attributes and negative attributes. Whereas a positive attribute for a Libra would be diplomatic and tactful. And a negative attribute for a Libra would be phony or dishonest or unreal or being flattering or being too much of a pretender. And you do see these people around, by the way. You only have to look at, and you'll see the difference of an evolved Libra and an unevolved one. And so an evolved one might be, or a positive keyword, should we call them, are peace-loving and harmonious. The negative qualities would be avoiding conflict at all costs, and seeking peace at any price. Therefore probably getting trodden on, but as a result. A positive Libra, a very well evolved Libra, might be suave and poised and elegant and refined, whereas the unevolved one might overemphasize things or be vain or pseudo-sophisticated. And so the positive Libra would be artistic with good taste and cultured and aesthetic, beauty conscious. The unevolved Libra might be one who has superficial values or frivolous, or overemphasizing the form of something. So there's quite a lot of differences, you see, between the different types, and you can see, when you start to understand, you can see it out there in the world around you, and so a well-evolved Libra, or positive keywords, might be someone who evaluates things, who weighs things up, seeks perspective, seeks objective, and is very aware of all the points of view. Whereas the unevolved Libra might be vacillating or indecisive or wishy-washy or contradictory. The Libra who might be striving for balance would be opposite the one who oscillates or fluctuates too much, or is too up and down or too extremist. And then there's one type of Libra who might be very fair or just or striving for equality, whilst the other one might be defining fairness for their own benefit or unable to accept the reality as it is. So these are distinctly types of how you might come across Libra. And I think, you'll find them in places where there's art, music, dance, acting, fashion, photography. You'll find them in things like advertising, interior design, maybe florists, or working with luxury goods. They love their labels, Libras. Libras are big into their labels, and they're big into fashion. And cosmetics would be a very Libra thing as well. Okay, so these are all the Libra things, and it's things in which cultivated style and sociability can be expressed. Libra's Gone Wrong is a bit ab-fab, like that sitcom, right? They're very Libra, but it's all a bit kind of crazy, So that would be a way of seeing, that's the funny side, if you like, and they make good representatives. They're good solicitors. They're good in law because it's the balance and it's the justice. They are good entertainers, and as I said, they're good mediators, and therefore, people who, might, for example, like arbitrators, people who try to settle differences. The legal field is big for Libras. You'll find them in legal things because they're about mediating peace, producing compromise, and representing what is just. So that is Libra. So to bring that right down, we're looking at the idea of relationships. We're looking at the idea of relating with spirit through the beauty and people of the world. I think is quite a good way of encapsulating Libra. They are about, their archetypes are things like the peacemaker, the lawmaker, but they're also like the decorator or the host. They are the diplomat and the artist. A Libra might be a painter, a decorator painter, in terms of, you might get Libras who like, they like to decorate things. They achieve their balance through aesthetic pursuits and equal relationships. And they want to create social harmony and justice. So it's the quality of the air element, and which is a lot to do with ideas and intellect, and it's the cardinal quality. And this is another key here. The cardinality of Libra means they're really good at business. When they're in a good relationship, nothing can stop them. A Libra that's not in a relationship can get really uptight, really upset, actually, not uptight, but upset, because they get very lonely. So Libras seek relationships. It's a massive thing for them to be in relationship of some kind, however that manifests for them, but they're going to be wanting to be relating. And Libras who don't get that they're lost, because it's that part of that sign that is to do with relating. So when a Libra's in a relationship, then they can achieve incredible things, and that's that cardinality. That's why you get incredibly powerful Libra business people. You can get, because when they've got the security of a relationship base that they're building on, then they reach out into the world and have great achievement. So that's that cardinal quality, because cardinals they're the starting up, they're the beginning of the season. Remember, Aries is a cardinal sign, Cancer the crab is a cardinal sign, Libra is a cardinal sign, and the last one will be Capricorn, which we'll cover in a few weeks' time. But the idea of that cardinal axis begins a season, and that is incredibly important for Libras. Is that they need to be relating. When they've got that, then nothing stops them. So, they once they find that happiness and they can reflect with their other, and they find their complementary partner or their other half or their confidant or their loved one, then these are things that really help them move forwards in life. So, there's a lot of taste and style with Libras. They love their fashion. They love to do it right. They love to be a la mode. What is cool? What is trendy? Cool is an air word, air element word. What trends, what's the happening thing. They love it. They love that sort of stuff. And they have an urge for pleasure, for peace, and for abundance. They will go for it. I mean, Libras often will get, will build up huge loans and things like that. Up again, because they want to have good times. So they can sometimes have money issues, because it can be a Libra thing, right? Because of that Venus quality. So you have to look at the Venus in the chart to understand how they are with their money and resources. So there's a lot, potentially for them that can be quite problematic, because they build up a lot of stuff, outgoings, ingoings, etc., etc. So, but it is all about really, still trying to find the inner state of centeredness through union with beauty. That's what Libra needs. And so, I think that probably rounds it up quite nicely for now to look at some charts. So we'll start with Kate Winslet, the actress. So Kate Winslet, of course, Titanic, which is the epic love film at the beginning of the 2000s or the end of 1990s. That film had huge Libra themes in it, of course, and Kate Winslet has Pluto on her ascendant in Libra, her sun and her moon and her Mercury. So the two luminaries, the sun and the moon, plus the ascendant with Pluto. Pluto would be, if you see her, some of her acting as that, then of course Titanic crashed into an iceberg. That's Pluto, archetypally speaking. And because Pluto was hidden under the surface is the massive block of ice that the ship ran into, and it was cold and dark, and it was Pluto. So in a way, her role as the prow of the ship at the end of the movie, the whole thing was an epic Libra archetype film, and she acted as the main actress in that with her sun and moon and Mercury in Libra. So and she does do a lot of romantic films, and is very much involved in the idea of representing an actress who really does represent relationships. Next up, we have so that was a sun and moon. I mean, I've got these are all different types tonight, so I'll just sort of gather them together without any particular order. But my next example, in fact, I'll do sun, moon. So we'll do. I'll just do that. We've got Vladimir Putin next, who is a Sun Saturn in Libra. So this is the diplomat, but also the person who must have balance, as in. But there's also a strong element of control there. But it's like he creates a sense of if by being there's a lot of a sense of law and order with a Saturn sun in Libra, is someone who's going to keep a very strong law and order about things. So that's what I'll say about that. And of course he's got the Neptune there as well. So he has a very strong idealism of what Russia should be, and he's not prepared to let go of that. So that's he's an idealist, and he's quite strong. He has quite a lot of dreamy qualities, actually. Funnily enough, he dreams a lot about various things. And a Scorpio ascendant, yes, indeed, absolutely. With of course Venus there in the first house. So when you have planets in Libra, you then have to look for Venus to understand how to answer how Venus has to answer to the planets in Libra. But this is a later lesson. We will develop this as you learn charts. Is this idea that so Libra rules Venus. So with Vladimir Putin, he has 4 planets in Libra, and then you have to look at the Venus as to how those planets are expressed, and that would be, and the Scorpio ascendant, of course, ruled by Mars. He rules with the iron glove. He does, right? And he doesn't allow dissent. He does not allow dissent, because he has peace at all costs, or apparent peace at all costs. He doesn't like people going up against his dreams. Yeah, Venus, Sun, Saturn. I've got a dream for Russia, and I'm sticking to it. And I've been doing that for I don't know how many years now, 25 years or something. He doesn't allow dissent. He doesn't allow people to speak out against him. So there's an interesting chart there to look at for another time. Of course, I didn't even mention the fact that he's got Pluto in his midheaven. You know, but that's another thing altogether. That's nothing to do with Libra tonight. But there you go. Anyway, so next up we've got Catherine Zeta-Jones, okay, from Swansea, okay, who is very Libra, right? She has the Sun at 2 degrees, Uranus at 4 degrees, Mercury at 10, and Jupiter at 13, and her midheaven at 27. I think it could be fair to say that she always wanted, she was out to get some sort of really major relationship in her life. And she got one with Michael Douglas. And of course, he happens to be a Libra too. So what you've got there, and I've got his chart later on down the list, so we'll go back to those two in a minute. But there's the idea there is that that's a good example of a Libra power couple, you know, where they're together, they're both Libras, and they are, you know, the Hollywood golden, you know. So there's a sense of that kind of what they represent in a way. And so yeah, so Catherine Zeta-Jones, actress, has a very distinct voice, of course, coming from Swansea, from Wales, with her Mercury Jupiter. And that Sun Uranus is an interesting, definitely quite exciting life. So, but it's all at the top of the chart as well. So she seeked some sort of fame, seeking out some sort of public profile. When you get clusterings of planets, particularly stelliums, these are called, we get lots of planets together in one sign, then you can see the area of the chart that's in. This is at the top of the chart. So it's about career, it's about public persona, or how you're seen in the world. And it was for her, she was recognized, she finally got her recognition when she married a superstar. She married a Hollywood royalty. She married Hollywood royalty. We have Mark Bolan, the pop star from the 1970s, who Ride a White Swan is the song that immediately comes to mind. I do believe that swans are ruled by Venus. The bird, the swan, is ruled by Venus. And he was a Sun Neptune with Venus Neptune as well. So this is the glam rock star, all sparkly and flares and feather boas and glammed up hair and makeup. Is a Venus Neptune Sun in Libra, all about the beauty, the form, the shape, the style, the mode. Mercury gave him a particular, you know, a charming voice as well, a nice singing voice. And so lots of planets in Libra, plus a midheaven, plus an angle. So, you know, he had a rocket ride of a career. Really sad, actually. You know, I'm sure he didn't intend to be in the Mini that day, or what, you know, when he had that crash in London and whatever. You know, it was a very sad ending, really. But that was the way how it worked. What happened to him? So, this represents, if you see that, you could think about what he did, the pop songs, and the look. He was a real fashion leader, and you know, far more cooler than, say, Slade. or, you know, he was as cool as, say, David Bowie was, you know. So you know, it's that kind of cool sort of Venus, Neptune, Sun, Libra, you know, illusory, glamour, dreaminess. People would dream. He had a huge fan base of people who, you know, and it was that kind of glam rock, you know. Here's a great choice, Simon Cowell, of course, right? So Simon Cowell is the judge. Yeah, he set up the idea of voting by phone. I don't know if it was him who started it, but he got right into the idea of voting by phone. So it was the judgment. So he sets up all these big reality TV shows. He gets all these amateurs up on stage, and then he judges, and he has the public judge for him, whilst he acts all critical as well, you know. So he goes, you know, it's a bit like the Roman amphitheater, you know, a bit like the senator or the Roman emperor who stands, right then, what do you think, everybody? And they all scream and shout, or they go boo, You know, thumbs up or thumbs down. You know, what are we going to do with this one? Vote on your phones and I'll make millions while you vote. You know, he's quite a clever chap. And it's all about how Libra works, right? The idea of two sides, because there's the performer on the stage and then there's the crowd. So, you know, he's kind of, and he's a Sun Mars, right? Now, Mars is in its detriment in Libra. Mars does not like being in Libra because it has, Mars wants to fight its way out of anything, right? And tries to, you know, push ahead and do its own thing. But it has to do it with Libra qualities. So he ropes in a panel of judges to be all mean on his behalf. He often gets people trying to, you know, you watch think what he does when you watch him. Think what he's actually doing with his personality. There's the image of him doing what he does, but then think what he's actually doing as well. And when you've got the chart, you can see. Now, this is only a noon chart, by the way. I don't know his birth time, and I'm not even sure if he's ever released that. Actually, if people actually have found that out, but he's a Sun, Mars, Mercury, and Libra, and the node. So, you know, you're looking at the three planets there: Sun, Mars, Mercury. Mercury would make a decision. Mars would be the competitiveness. Will you make it through to the next round? Well, I'll tell you after your song. You know, that kind of stuff, right? So it's the competitive quality that he organizes things. Libra is the judge, the just. You know, I'm trying to be fair here. I've got to decide who to put through to the next round. So, you know, and so there's a very classic Libra, and he really is quite, and then if you look to what Venus is doing, because you have to look to what Venus is, how these planets in Libra answer in the chart to Venus, who is in critical Virgo, okay, conjunct Pluto, right, which again, and this is wealth and resources, right, but it's also, you know, the devastating, he devastates some people. When what he says, some people would never go on stage again after trying their best to do something, to sing or dance or do something performance, and he'll say something devastating, and he probably really does actually do. He's not absolute, you know. Some things he says are not very nice to some people. So there you go. You know, it's like Venus Pluto. You know. Kamala Harris. I mean, you know, Libra sun sign, justice, law, yeah, top lawyer, right? Prosecuting lawyer, actually, top lawyer in America, right? With her sun in Libra, opposite the moon in Aries. She was born at the full moon. This is an accurate chart, right? This is the time chart, and that's an exact full moon. She has sun in Libra, moon in Aries. And boy, did she make it to the top, and whistle time, quick. I mean, she's got there, she's young and she's at the top, right? And she's probably going to take over, right? Probably within the next 2 years. So there you go. There's a good example of a Libra. Libras make great politicians. They make great in law first, but then they pave the way. So if she can relate, which she does do, she must be in, you know, probably got very happy marriage and so forth. Therefore, she can move ahead and rapidly. The cardinal quality of having a strong sort of moving ahead kind of thing going on there, you know, the sun opposite the moon in Libra and Aries. Gwyneth Paltrow is a sun Pluto. Caused a lot of controversy when she released that candle, you know, and all that. That's very sun Pluto, you know. It was like quite extreme, you know. Pluto is often a lot to do with sexual issues, and so it was all through the candle. That was a product. It made her a lot of money. She does stuff. She does, her whole company is called, I think, Goop or something like that, or her website's called Goop, which is you know, that's a kind of sun Pluto-y kind of word in its own way. Libra, of course, is a beautiful word, is everything beautiful and everything attractive and everything nice. And of course, that's what she does and what she is. Started with Shakespeare in Love. That's how she made her fame, which was, you know, being an actress. And then this is, you know, going to extremes with beauty. there's a very extremism there, you know, Sun conjunct Pluto in Libra. So, you know, quite interesting. But that's, I think, is, you know, maybe Mercury Uranus is goop. I'm just thinking of the word, you know, what it means. What does that word mean? and she knows what it means. and it's eighth house, you know. So there's a sort of slightly mysterious quality to it, but it's made her a lot of money. And now she does everything beauty products and is about staying young, staying beautiful. All Libra, these are Libra things, you know. It's stay young, stay beautiful. I'm not growing old, she'll say, you know. She'll probably sits firmly in that part of being like, be beautiful forever, and everyone must be beautiful with me too, you know. And that's a very Gwyneth Paltrow kind of outlook on life, I would think, with the Sun Pluto, you know. And of course, answering to Venus. So when you've got Sun, Pluto, Mercury, Uranus, so the Sun and Mercury with outer planets, what's Venus doing? Venus is in confident, generous, and proud Leo, you know, shining out, you know. So she loves looking at herself in the mirror. I mean, Venus in Leo, they love looking at themselves in the mirror, guaranteed. And because Venus is in fact the handheld mirror, that's the symbol of the handheld mirror. And you know, like you hold the mirror up and it has, you know, so you hold that and the reflection of self. So, but in Leo there is that particular, and look how well aspected it is, you know, amazing, you know. So of course it's got some incredible aspects coming off of it. So she really does want to heal, you know, because look at this here, the Chiron there, sort of linked to the Venus, and I mean, I'm going right into the chart now, but you get the idea, right? I mean, there's so much to see in all these charts, of course. You know, you got to, you know, the further we go in, the more we'll see. Tonight, as I said, I'm just doing Libra, but I'm giving you some ideas there of how that works, and how that might be, how you can see it in different people's charts. So Gwyneth Paltrow. Well, I mean, talk about justice, okay? I mean, when this is George Floyd's chart, okay, 14th of October 1973. I mean, that when that came up in the news, of course, the day that he was murdered, then yeah, he's a Sun Uranus conjunction in Libra. Didn't have the time, that, you know, not necessarily released information, but the date, Sun Uranus in Libra opposite Chiron. And by transit, Pluto was squaring the Sun, and it was the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which was happening here in Capricorn with Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto in Capricorn, around that time that he you know, he couldn't breathe, and that's air. So you know, and now justice, he created a massive movement as a result of that, a whole collective movement, which is of course Uranian revolutionary. So there's a big shift. So he represents a lot, and you can see it just from that alone, you know, and how that happened at the time, you know. So it was the transits of Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto all in Capricorn here. They squared his Sun Uranus, and that set everything off. So there we go. And his Venus is conjunct Neptune in Sagittarius. The truth. What is the truth? You know, and where is the love? You know, as well. You know? So Venus, Neptune, the dream of the love and the truth of things. You know, we must have. There's a lot of issues there, and he kind of collectively represents them. So it's quite interesting. Then we go on to David Cameron, England's favorite Libra, or not, as the case may be. You know, Libras can't make decisions, can they? Right? Libras cannot make decisions for themselves. So what do? I'll hold a referendum. Oh, cheers. Thanks, Libra. Anyway, so, and this is an accurate time chart. So he has Libra ascendant with Venus on the ascendant. Charming. charming, diplomatic, but couldn't make a decision. Couldn't make a decision. Sat on the fence, and now we're where we are. So there we go. So that's, you know, another type of Libra politician. This one didn't have didn't have the qualities of Kamala Harris, but, you know, it did have this instead, and so that's the result. Is where we are today. Is it a referenda is a very Libran kind of thing, because he couldn't make his own mind up. Another sun, because David Cameron's a Sun Venus. Okay, another Sun Venus is Aleister Crowley. Okay, the magician, the occultist, who was a Sun conjunct Venus in Libra, self-indulgent, you know, sexual proclivity, you know, I mean, infamous, totally infamous, and Sun conjunct Venus on the base of his chart as well, with the IC in Libra there as well, so on an angle. But that is you know, if you look at his exploits and his relationships and various things, a lot is revealed there with that Sun Libra conjunction. Yeah, and I think that's probably enough said about that for now. But you know, he's a very well documented character. And then we have another politician, Margaret Thatcher, who has a wide Sun Mars conjunction in Libra, the Iron Lady, because Mars rules iron, yet she was a lady, with her Sun and Mercury in Libra, and she had her stalwart Dennis, the husband Dennis, right beside her for 50 years of marriage or something, and that was the Libra, so she could then lead the country with her own particular way of doing things, which of course with the Sun Mars was quite belligerent. She, you know, Falklands War, anybody, you know, win an election with a war? Well, you've got a Sun Mars conjunction, and you know, and also Sun squares Pluto, you know, so that was extremism, you know, conservatism, bringing that through very strongly. So she led a very strong, sort of almost devastating impact on Britain's economy. But that's, you know, that Mars is, you know, it's not happy, and you know, she had to keep the peace whilst trying to fight as well, which is an interesting way of looking at it. Another Sun Mars is Roger Moore, the middle James Bond, the one from who after Sean Connery, of course, is a Sun Mars. In fact, all the James Bonds have very Sun Mars signature, a lot of them. Roger Moore had Sun Mars in Libra, very suave and very cool and very sociable and very friendly, and had a gun and shot people, and was a secret agent and doing all these things in his movies. But it's very Sun Mars, you see. So there was this sort of super cool secret agent type of chap, and so it's a very James Bond thing, would be the Sun Mars signature with Libra, you know. And so this would be lots of attraction or lots of interaction with very beautiful people, which when he did his films in the 1970s, so his era was mostly late 60s and 70s. He stopped by he stopped doing James Bond by the early 80s, I think. And so he had that whole kind of that kind of 1970s sort of culture that he was doing his James Bond in, and so there's a Sun Mars in Libra. And then musicians, a very favorite musician of mine, but I picked him out because he's got so many planets in Libra, is Julian Cope, who is a singer-songwriter, very, very independent. I believe he's always been very independent in what he does. He has so many planets in Libra. He's also a poet and writes poetry. not just pop music as well, but poetry. And he has a very dedicated fan base. He really likes to relate to his fans. I think he does a lot of interaction with them. But there's a sense of that sort of the Jupiter. I quite like the idea of the Jupiter with the Mars, with the Mercury, with the Sun. There's a kind of that, you know, so he's got the moon as well, but that Jupiter Mars is quite interesting, I think. And some of the qualities of his music, he likes mysteries, he likes earth mystery and things like that. He's a very interesting kind of chap. And his music's quite light and bouncy. It has a kind of slight, as a nice kind of, a sort of airy rhythms to it. You know, I sort of associate it with being quite airy. I don't know his birth time, but, you know, I thought of him because of his stellium in Libra. So yeah, so he makes very nice music. The epitome of cool has got to be Brian Ferry of Roxy Music, right? I mean, everything is. This is just he was again another glam rocker. So Sun Neptune very strongly, but that Jupiter was very kind of international. You know, he was kind of like the international king of cool and very suave, and there was something about him that was very kind of encapsulated so much, and that super cool character is a Libra, and so that Jupiter, that well, I always see that as that kind of international kind of quality, slightly global, sort of something about him that would appeal to the whole planet or something like that. There was something about him that had that kind of, I don't know, something like, I'm trying to put it into words here, but I think you just think of Brian Ferry and think of the expansion and bigness of Jupiter, and you might get that quality that he had, a sort of like a business class airline kind of character, something like that, with Roxy Music, in terms of how he wrote his music and the sort of things he did. We have another Sun Saturn here. It's Sting, the musician Sting, Gordon Sumner, who has Sun at 8 Libra, Saturn at 5 Libra, but also Moon and Neptune in Libra. So quite a packed stellium there. His big band, his breakthrough band, was called The Police. And what's Saturn? Law and Order. So there's the name. Who came up with the name of The Police? I think he did, because he's got a Sun-Saturn conjunction in Libra, which you might not see. You might not notice that, you know, you wouldn't. But why did he call his band The Police? You might ask. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Now, he likes astrology. We all know he likes astrology. He bigs up Stephen Forrest, who's one of the world's, who is probably the world's most famous astrologer right now, whose waiting list for readings is about 3 years long. But he because Sting bigged him up in his book, so he wrote a testimonial for Stephen Forrest's book, which then went on to sell phenomenal amounts. So, and Sting is very into his relationships. He's very into his spiritual relationships. He has a very spiritual wife, which could be the Moon Neptune, Trudy Styler. So she does a lot of yoga. They're very conscientious. Very conscientious. They want a world peace, of course, and they think about. They took a lot of action with Rainforest Action Network and various things like that over the years. You know, they've done a lot to try to change people's opinions and attitudes towards things to make a better world. So you know, he's a leader in his field, and he writes excellent songs. So there we go. Gwen Stefani, I brought up. Why did I bring Gwen Stefani up? I brought Gwen Stefani up because she's a Sun Uranus in Libra, and the Sun Jupiter. She moved to London and lived in London for 20 years. Brought her children up in London, actually, near to Regent's Park, and I was married to that chap, Gavin someone, up until recently. She's just getting married again now to someone else. She's still in the headlines a lot. She's singing in a band, so she did a lot of singing. That Sun Uranus, slightly eccentric, very eccentric, you know. So you can see the eccentricity in all her pop songs and how she does things on stage. But she's very fashion conscious, hugely fashion conscious. And she does loads of fashion, basically, is her thing, fashion and music. Another one, by the way, is another good example of Sun Uranus is Eminem, the rapper. He's Sun Uranus. I didn't bring his chart up today, but it's one I would have brought up had I thought about it a bit more. But the Sun Uranus there in Libra. Now we've got a Sun Pluto, Dita Von Teese, who runs. She does a makeup, perfume, fashion, lingerie. She popularized burlesque again. So she's very, Sun Pluto, very strong, powerful kind of underlying sexual quality to everything she does. Quite, and she got married to Marilyn Manson for a couple of years, but she runs massive fashion labels. She's hugely a la mode, again, in fashion circles. And she has labels galore. I mean, she does all sorts of things, everything all these things about Libra I was telling you about. She's a very good example of it because there's her sun with Pluto, like Gwyneth Paltrow, they run all these things. They have all these things about beauty and style and fashion. And Dita Von Teese is another really good example of that. And she brought back the idea of things like burlesque and did a lot with Marilyn Manson. Well, she was only married to him for a couple of years, but the marriage was sort of promoted her. It kind of got her up several levels of getting noticed and in her marketing, should we say. So it didn't last long though, but yeah, anyway, so she's a Sun Pluto. And the last chart for this evening is Michael Douglas, who has several planets in Libra, Sun, Neptune, Mars, and Venus, and is married to Catherine Zeta-Jones. And that would be, of course, the Libra power couple that I talked about. So there we go. That and he specializes. His films are romantic thrillers. He Fatal Attraction, Disclosure, all these sort of. He loves those very powerful relationship motive films. He gets really involved in those, and he did a lot with. He's had a really interesting career actually. He produced one for The Cuckoo's Nest, and he won an Oscar for that. He was the producer that got that film in 1975. That's how he got into Hollywood, actually, even though his father, of course, was Kirk Douglas. But he had a launching thing, was that movie. That's what launched him. And then he became a big producer, turned into acting. But that's a Sun Neptune, you see, is films. That's also his father being a film star, the Sun Neptune. And then he's had 3 marriages. Yeah, Catherine Zeta-Jones is the third marriage, and so seeking happiness through relationships, he's had to try again and again and again to try and get the right ones. I think he's found it now because he married another Libra. I think that, and that's of course Libras do get on very well together. They tend to have good matching. So there we go.